Sherrone is out at Michigan. Circumstances surrounding it are not good. And even outside of that, this felt like it was inevitable. I don't think this was a good hire to begin with. I didn't really like the hire when it was made at the time. And now they're looking for someone to take over and pretty late in the coaching carousel. It feels like the candidates that they might have wanted if they were going to make this move earlier are then out. Maybe they're waiting for this, something where it says, a lot of people are reporting it's with cause. So maybe they were waiting for this to get things done. Now, there are still plenty of names that could potentially take over, and Michigan is a brand that is an interesting team for a lot of people. So the appeal for some of these names that we'll talk about is going to be there. You're also bringing to the table Bryce Underwood. Bryce Underwood is a nice piece to the puzzle that you can say, hey, this is what we have. Here's who we're looking to develop. And obviously, you're going to want to keep certain players on the roster. Bryce Underwood is at the top of that list. So, who is going to replace Sherrone Moore? That is the big question. Could you go and get a Joe Brady, who's been listed as a candidate for a lot of head coaching openings? He is someone that has a good track record. He's in the NFL, he's offensive coordinator right now for the Buffalo Bills, a great offensive mind. And if you're looking to keep Bryce Underwood, bringing in a name like that would give you a head start on that endeavor. Keeping Bryce Underwood obviously is the big key. If you can keep him around, it's going to be great for this program. It's going to have a bright future if you keep him around. It's going to be tricky to find the right hire. I think that, you are late in the coaching carousel process. So you're going to have to pay quite a bit of money to someone because you might be paying Sherrone Moore depending on how things play out. And you're going to have to pay someone else to pay their buyout for their current school, bring them in. So how is that going to work? Joe Brady would be an interesting fit. Jeff Brom, I know he said that at Louisville he's sticking around, but we didn't expect Michigan to come open, and maybe that's a job he wants to leave for. I don't necessarily know how many schools he'd leave Louisville for, but Michigan could be appealing enough. Again, Bryce Underwood is a nice piece to dangle in front of some of these coaches to say, look what we have, look at the potential we have, and you can bring in players to help that. Jeff Brom would fix the offensive struggles at Michigan. He knows how to find good talent in the transfer portal at wide receiver. We've seen his offenses do great things. He also has a couple players at Louisville that might follow him. So that is another good name to keep an eye on if he wants to come to Michigan. Indiana defense coordinator Brian Haynes has done great things. You look at what he did against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. That is another huge name you could potentially get. Now, whether or not Michigan wants a coordinator that is going to be a head coach or if they want a proven head coach remains the question. We're obviously early in this process. We don't know. But I think that you're going to get someone good in Brian Haynes who's done good things under Kurt Cignetti. I know a lot of people probably put Cignetti on this list as well. He's a proven winner. He elevated Indiana to a whole different level. Maybe he's ready to take that next step to go to Michigan. Age might be a problem, so if they're worried about that, they can get somebody on his staff. Brian Haynes and Mike Shanahan are doing great things as the coordinators there with the Hoosiers, and it's been a fun year because of them. Arizona State's Kenny Dillingham. I know he's another one similar to Jeff Brom. He's at his alma mater. He wants to stay there as long as possible, but the right team calling is going to get him out of there. Plain and simple. I firmly believe that. I don't think that we're seeing coaches stick around at places for a long period of time. So it's going to be interesting to see if Michigan is appealing enough for him to leave. Another good offensive mind that could bring in quite a bit of talent. If you're looking again to keep Bryce Underwood, bringing a guy like Dillingham gives you an appealing coach that would keep him around. Jed Fish's name has been thrown around there for quite a while. The NFL connections. It feels like he'd be a good Michigan coach if you just put the two together. Another offensive mind that can help Bryce Underwood develop into the quarterback that Michigan needs him to be. So it'll be fun to see if that is a name that will be on this list as well. Now, if you're looking for other names that are kind of out there, Glenn Schumann is looking for a head coaching opportunity, it seems, and he's waiting for the right fit. Michigan would, I think, be a school that he leaves Georgia for. If he's looking truly for that opportunity, he's a good defensive mind that can keep that tradition at Michigan going, to be able to play elite defense and keep teams at bay. Then maybe that's something you do. A younger head coach that, again, your primary goal is keeping Bryce Underwood. So you don't necessarily need a an offensive minded guy, because Schumann has shown that he can recruit and coach defense well enough. There are certain things that he'd bring to the table that maybe Underwood sees and thinks, okay, this is still a good position for me to stay in. Now, Kalen DeBoer I put on this list because I wonder how much pressure there is on him now, depending on what happens in the playoffs. Say they lose to Oklahoma. Are Alabama fans going to be satisfied with where he's at, or are they going to run him out of town? Maybe he's looking for a place that is still plenty of pressure, but maybe less pressure than Alabama. Following Nick Saban was always going to be tough, but following Sherrone Moore would make him a hero instantly. If he's looking for a better situation, and again, we talk about offensive mind, Kalen DeBoer, and if he brings Ryan Grubb with him, would be a great fit for Bryce Underwood to be able to develop his talent. They'd also be able to bring talent into the program to help him at wide receiver, running back, offensive line. I like what Kalen DeBoer can do at his time at Washington, his time at Alabama. It really just comes down to whether or not he wants to move on, or if Alabama fans are happy with where things are going. That is a name to keep an eye on, because we put him at Penn State. A lot of people put him at Penn State, and ultimately didn't work out, but maybe now the Michigan job is the one that he is going to take if things don't go according to plan. Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. I think that Clark Lee, just like Kenny Dillingham, just like Jeff Brom, he's at a place that he likes. He's very happy with where he's at, but he's going to get opportunities elsewhere. It just comes down to fit. Michigan is a place that needs to get back to a certain point, and Clark Lee has shown that he can elevate programs into what they need to be, or the program at Vanderbilt to what it needed to be. They won 10 games this year. They're one of the more exciting programs in the country, and he could get Michigan into a place where they need to be. Get back to that playing really well, playing at a high level, competing for Big Ten championships. Clark Lee could be on that list. Now, I know some people are going to throw Fran Brown's name into the mix. The 3-9 season at Syracuse wasn't great, but Fran Brown, I think, is a good head coach. I think he builds the right culture. He knows how to recruit the right people, and this year just didn't work out. So it's going to be tough to sell that one, but Fran Brown is a good head coach. I think he's going to be very fun to watch wherever he lands, wherever he needs to be, or wherever he goes. So Fran Brown is another one that I think kids relate to him. Kids like what he's selling. They believe in what he's telling them. And again, you're trying to get certain players to stick around. Bryce Underwood being the top one. If there's a guy who knows how to relate to those kids, it's Fran Brown. So even though he's not the most appealing coach, I wouldn't be surprised if he is on this list. I'm not saying he's the top coach that they want, or the top person that they're interested in, but I do think that there are the people that will be interested in adding him to that staff. Another one I just threw out there. Do you think that Brett Bielema would be a good fit? I'm very curious to see how people feel about what he's done in the Big Ten at Illinois. Winning at Illinois, it hasn't been the easiest, but what he's done there is pretty impressive. I do think that he is maybe not on the highest on the list of a lot of these coaches. So it'll be interesting to see if he does get any interest. He's proven that he can elevate programs in the Big Ten. He's proven that he's done it at two schools in the Big Ten, Wisconsin and Illinois. Doing that at Michigan would be pretty similar. He knows how to get to those big games. He's done that time and time again. And even though this year was a little bit of a disappointment for Illinois, they still went 8-4. So Brett Bielema could be someone that they look at there. There's going to be plenty of names. Michigan is a big enough brand where people are going to recognize it and understand that this is going to be a good opportunity. It just comes down to who it's going to be. I like a lot of these candidates listed today. There's plenty more probably that are in consideration, and really, if Michigan is willing to pay enough money, there are some bigger names that I didn't mention here that could be in play as well. If they're willing to give up the money for that, to pay someone to come to Michigan Again, big enough brand, that's going to be appealing for somebody. It's going to come down to the right person, the right fit. And if they're able to do that, how do they pull that off? How do they get that coach there? And then you can turn your attention to the roster. How do you retain it? How do you keep Bryce Underwood? There are a lot of questions with this program, but there's also a lot of potential, a lot of possibilities as well. A new head coach is going to be exciting. It just comes down to who that's going to be.